The Enfield poltergeist became one of the most terrifying cases ever to occur in England, specifically in Enfield, London, in the late 1970s. This event was not just an ordinary horror story, but a series of occurrences reported by numerous witnesses and widely covered by the public. The Hodgson family, who lived in a modest house, suddenly had to face phenomena that were difficult to explain through logic or science at the time. The Hodgson family consisted of a mother named Peggy Hodgson and her 4 children: Margaret, Janet, John, and Billy. They lived a simple life after the father was no longer with them. No one could have predicted that their once peaceful life would drastically change into one filled with fear. It all began with small incidents that gradually escalated into something far more terrifying. The first incident was reported in 1977, when Janet Hodgson, who was 11 years old at the time, began experiencing something strange inside their home. She heard mysterious knocking sounds on the walls of her bedroom, sounds that had no clear source. At first, the family assumed it was just ordinary noise, or perhaps a disturbance from outside. But the occurrences continued with increasingly unusual patterns. Not long after the knocking sounds began, objects inside the house started moving on their own. Chairs that were once still suddenly shifted without anyone touching them. Cabinets shook. Children's toys moved from place to place, and doors opened and closed by themselves. These phenomena made every member of the family feel frightened and uncomfortable in their own home, which should have been the safest place. The fear intensified as these events began happening almost every night. It was not just sounds and moving objects. Strange voices could also be heard, as if someone was speaking from the darkness. The voice sounded deep and rough, very different from the voices of the children in the house. Janet became the center of most of these events, as if something was directly connected to her. Janet then began experiencing even more horrifying incidents. She was reportedly seen levitating by several witnesses, including her own family members. Her body would rise from the bed and then fall back down without any clear explanation. This made the family increasingly convinced that they were dealing with something beyond normal understanding. In addition, Janet also experienced what was described as possession. In certain conditions, she spoke with the voice of an adult man, harsh and frightening. The voice claimed to be another entity residing in the house. This was recorded by several researchers who later came to investigate the case, adding more evidence that made the case even more famous. As the incidents grew more intense and uncontrollable, Peggy Hodgson finally decided to seek help. She contacted authorities, as well as paranormal investigators, to examine the phenomena occurring in her home. Many parties came, including researchers from paranormal organizations who were interested in studying the case more deeply. 2 of the most well-known names involved in the investigation were Maurice Grosse and Guy Lyon Playfair. They were researchers from the Society for Psychical Research who came directly to the Hodgson house. Both spent months observing, documenting, and recording the strange occurrences happening there. During the investigation, Maurice Grosse and Guy Lyon Playfair claimed to have witnessed various phenomena that were difficult to explain. They reported seeing objects move without contact, hearing mysterious voices, and even witnessing levitation. All of this was documented as part of their research into the poltergeist activity in the house. One of the most famous pieces of evidence from this case is the recording of Janet speaking in the voice of an adult man. The recording reveals a voice that sounds different from Janet's original voice, as if another entity was speaking through her. This became one of the most intriguing and controversial aspects of the case. In addition to audio recordings, there were also photographs showing Janet in a levitating position. These photos were taken by journalists covering the incident. The images became widely known and were often used as visual evidence of the phenomena in Enfield, although their authenticity was also questioned by some. The mass media played a major role in spreading the story of the Enfield poltergeist worldwide. Many journalists came to cover the events firsthand. News about the haunted house in Enfield became a hot topic that captured public attention, making the case one of the most famous in paranormal history. However, not everyone believed that the events were real. Some skeptics argued that what happened was merely a hoax or fabrication carried out by the children, particularly Janet. They believed that the attention from the media and researchers may have encouraged the behavior to continue. Some investigators also found that Janet had admitted to faking certain incidents. This led some people to doubt the entire case. However, supporters of the paranormal theory argued that not all events could be explained as deception, especially those witnessed directly by multiple individuals. The debate between believers and skeptics continued 4 years after the events took place. There has never been a definitive conclusion that explains all the phenomena that occurred in the Hodgson house. This uncertainty is precisely what makes the case even more fascinating to discuss and study. Poltergeist phenomena themselves are known as supernatural activities, often associated with adolescents, particularly those undergoing emotional stress. In many cases, such activity occurs around a specific individual, as was believed to be the case with Janet. This became one of the theories used to explain the Enfield events. Some experts believe that strong emotional energy can trigger psychokinesis, the ability to influence objects without physical contact. In this context, Janet was considered the center of energy, causing objects to move and other strange occurrences in the house. On the other hand, there are also those who believe that the house was indeed inhabited by a supernatural entity. They believe that the male voice heard through Janet was the spirit of someone who once lived in the house. This claim is supported by stories suggesting that the house had a mysterious history. Regardless of the various theories, the experiences of the Hodgson family remained deeply traumatic. They lived in fear for months, never knowing when the next event would occur. Their daily lives became filled with anxiety and uncertainty. The case also attracted the attention of researchers from various fields, including psychology and parapsych. They attempted to understand whether the phenomenon originated from the human mind or something beyond scientific comprehension. To this day, no definitive answer has been found. Over time, the strange occurrences in the Hodgson house began to subside. The activity that once happened almost daily gradually disappeared. The family was eventually able to return to a more normal life, although the memories of the past remained with them, even though the events happened decades ago. The story of the Enfield poltergeist continues to live on in various forms. Many books, documentaries, and television programs have revisited the case, attempting to uncover the mystery that remains unsolved. One of the most famous adaptations of this story is a horror film released in